Church Bad Boys, Hophi and Phinehas. Hophi, bring some of the meat that is cooking on the open fire and let us have some fun tonight, shouted Phinehas. Ladies, there is enough for us to go around. Take it easy. No fighting here in the house of the Lord, said Phinehas, as his wife turned and walked away. It was their lives, and they were free to live it the way that they wanted to, and they could not wait for the old man Eli, their father, to die. Maybe that was what they should do tonight, pray for him to die. After all, they were the priests now, and it was their legacy and their right. They could always repent tomorrow, as today had enough sorrow of its own. The women were throwing themselves at them, and who were they to say no? One of these days, all these things would be theirs, and the sooner the better. He, Hophi, wished that he was unmarried, but he had been told that it was a requirement to become a minister of God, and so he did. But his wife was so boring. She never did those things that these women were willing to do for him. Besides, half of the time she had a headache, and the other half they were fighting. God would understand. He was an understanding God. He was a long-suffering and a good God. Here was to the rest of the night, and what a night it was going to be. Nadab and Abihu. Nadab, are we not as much a priest as our father and like our uncle Moses and Auntie Miriam? Let us also approach the altar with our own fire. Service to God does not take all the things that Uncle Moses is saying. Besides, who made him our father or priest? Said Abihu. I do not know. You remember the last time something like this occurred? People died. And Abihu, I am really not ready to die yet, lamented Nabab to his brother. You are so spineless. Pick up your censer. Nothing is going to happen to us. After all, we are his nephews, and our father's sons. Let us approach the altar, screamed Abihu to his brother mockingly. Okay, well, you feel more comfortable if we don the garments of priests. Listen, nothing will happen to us, I promise, because we are both the leaders' sons and nephews. I am sorry for shouting at you. You are not spineless. You see, Nadab, I told you that we could approach the altar with any type of fire, and nothing would happen. I told you that. Fire! Fire! Oh my God, we are dead! Screamed Abihu. We are dead! Chapter 8. Church Bad Boys. Now Eli was very old, and he heard everything his sons did to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Samuel 2:22. Church Bad Boys. Crank up the sound to that music, Pastor Jeremiah, Stephen yelled from the other room. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? The music blasted on the radio at midnight. Stephen, we have to preach tomorrow morning, Pastor Jeremiah of the Fountain of Life Church said to Stephen. Stephen was the pastor of Riverside Ministries, and he had to preach at another location in the city. Their Bishop Francis had sent them to minister to the inner city from Missouri, but they had been having a good time since they had arrived 4 months ago. Pastor Jeremiah, you are such a bore, Stephen said, reeking of a jar of Old Spice as though he had never used cologne before. Stephen was ready to take the nightlife on, and he intended on being a bad boy tonight. He was not going to hold back, and he was here with his best friend. What could be sweeter than the ladies and his friend by his side? Listen, Meg is going to be at this place tonight, and I want a repeat performance of what she did to me in the church office this afternoon, Stephen roared. Stephen, you know that you are nasty. To do such a thing in the church is blasphemous. Jeremiah shook his hand at him. Cool it. What you should really do is get down with her friend, Amber, a big-breasted girl who was chewing gum all in your face, he said. She is hot for you. You might want to tap that, he said, laughing out loud. Stephen was no question the hottest pastor in their group and was married as well. His wife was beautiful Grace, his former choir director and leader. Some said that he had been dealing with her and getting her pregnant, and that was why they had rushed a marriage. Well, he knew that she was at least 1 month pregnant by the time they tied the knot, and Bishop Francis was not happy about that at all. But what could the bishop do? Bishop had a weakness for Stephen's boyish charm. He was a crowd puller, one of the greatest fundraisers that their association had ever had, and he pulled in millions at events worldwide. His name sold books, magazines, and CDs. In one meeting alone, Stephen was able to raise $1.2 million in a week. And for this reason, many times, Bishop ignored some of Stephen's antics, but he was slowly getting out of control, and Bishop was partly to blame for his illicit behavior. Stephen had the largest number of congregations in the city, second only to Bishop Francis's. His members were made up of the elite of the society, football players, actors, and musicians. Even the mayor of D.C. was a church member and a strong financial supporter of his. Last year he had been invited to pray for Congress, a feat that even the bishop had not achieved. And the previous year he was asked to open Wall Street for trading. Another year he was the creative director for the highly acclaimed movie called Church in the City that literally took him to Hollywood status overnight as a pastor to the stars and the rich and famous. Stephen was tall, handsome, charismatic, funny, and totally charming. He was a well-read brother who struggled to get out of the hood and gangs, went to Howard University, and graduated with honors. He moved to Princeton by way of a scholarship and was later discovered during the famous all-men's conference of Bishop Stanley called Men, It Is Time, and the rest was church history. Jerry and he had come a long way from their days in Southeast, selling drugs for a nickel and buying cigarettes and smoking in front of the Potomac River on the way to Virginia. The Virginia police did not play, so they had to find another way to spend their time. Stephen was like an older brother to him. They did everything together when they were growing up, from using drugs to going to school. They were even at Howard together, and afterward, when Stephen went to Princeton, he would send for Jerry every weekend, and there would be a girl hookup for him at his bachelor pad. Stephen was the man, but things were beginning to spin seriously out of control. Jerry, what is wrong with you? Stephen said, pushing him around. I have you covered. We are not going inside the club, just to pick the girls up and have some fun. And just make sure that you are packing protection. By that, he meant condoms. The last time, Stephen contracted STDs at the pastor's conference in Seattle, Washington, and he had to stay several weeks in Seattle before he could return home to his wife. Grace was not the type of wife whom you told you had a headache, according to Stephen. Quite frankly, Jerry did not know how Stephen did it. He was not into pornography, but he was into everything else, and that sometimes meant drugs as well. Lower the music, it is Bishop calling. Put in a preaching tape now, Stephen said, picking up his cell phone and putting it on hands-free so that Jerry could hear what Bishop was saying as well. Good evening, Bishop. What are you still doing up, sir? Stephen said in his Sunday school choir voice. My sons, I just called to check up on you. I spoke to the cardinal out there, and he told me that you both were able to raise over $150,000 since you have been in Missouri." Bishop's voice thundered over the stillness of the night. "Yes, sir. We will be able to reach out to the lost and co-labor with Cardinal Thomas, as well as Pastor Rachel, of First Baptist Church of Missouri," Stephen said while making signs of what he had planned to do to Meg when he got her that night. "I understand that Pastor Rachel is the senior pastor of one of the fastest-growing churches in Missouri," Bishop responded. "Yes, sir. She has been able to address the disparities between the indigents and the refugees out in Missouri without there being a clash of limited resources," he said, shaking his waist at Jerry, who was trying to do everything not to laugh. "Where is Jerry?"